What's good, everybody? It's Big Game James, man. I'm back in the building, and we're talking a little bit of free agency or maybe the lack thereof. Um, let's jump right into it. Won't be long at all. Just my quick thoughts on what the Joneses may do, from my opinion, and my thoughts what they may do, what they may not do. So without further ado, let's jump in here and let's pull this up. Here is the quick video. If you haven't seen it, some quick highlights of Odell Beckham Jr. I know a lot of people don't want him. I still want him. Hey, sorry. I still want the guy. So, here's some quick highlights. Look good out in and out them cuts. Look noticeably bigger. A lot of people complain about catching with one hand, not me. I mean, if you can catch with one hand, I'm sure you can catch with two. Good in and out of his breaks. Saw some explosiveness right there. I think he looking okay. You know what I mean? Let's get this. Let's pull this up right here. All right, so you saw the quick highlights of that. If you didn't, you can go check out the page. Now, I did make a post from Mike Florio where it says Odell Beckham Jr.'s contract demands are still the same, and he wanted at least $20 million. I made the post. I deleted it because, once I seen the name Mike Florio, I think he'd just be saying stuff. I know he's an insider, so let me not say he's not. But I don't be trusting everything he says. This guy right here, Tom Pelissero, I listen to him a little bit more. So several teams are now in talks with free agent Odell Beckham Jr., who generated a buzz with his workout in front of scouts and coaches Friday in Arizona. Sources say there have been no negotiations yet, and OBJ has made no financial demands. Expect things to ramp up soon. So, we hear one essence where he's got contract demands up to $20 million. Now we hear he has made no financial demands. I'm gonna go with Tom Pelissero on this one and kind of go with that as far as that option. As far as he hasn't said anything yet. Sorry about that. I'm kind of all over the place. But let me pull this up here. There we go right here. And let's see. Let me back up. Cowboys have opened up the cap room, obviously. Here, if you want to pull up the cap, I'm sorry. I'm kind of just all over the place, but I got so many things in my head right now. Right now, Cowboys are the seventh youngest team in the league at 26 exactly. They freed up $12 million in cap space right now. They have $12 million total right now, if you can see that, after the restructures of Dak and Zach Martin. So they have $12 million now currently available. I'm sure they can restructure Tyron Smith, and they can get more available, and they can restructure – they can cut Ezekiel Elliott if they choose, and they'll save 10 to 11 million. So that's more money, and I'm sure with Michael Gallup, I think they can redo his and free up at like 7 to 8 million. So there's money to be available. Basically, there's money available that they can make and they can do, right. I'm scrolling down right here. This is from James Slater. Cowboys have had initial conversations with Bobby Wagner. Nothing set in stone. Okay. James Slater says she can't confirm those initial conversations. And once again, the money and the value has to make sense on both parties. Sources confirm. We know how that works with the Joneses. I'm just throwing all these things out there before I give you my opinion on this. And then we got right here, Jeremy Fowler says that the Cowboys are zero-in as Donovan Wilson as their top priority in free agency. They want to re-sign him. That's what they're saying. We were hearing noise that they were having problems signing him because of the market value. They don't know if they want to pay the market value. If he has a high market value, they don't know if they want to go with it. You know how the Cowboys do. And there's Marquise Bell on the roster. You already have a Malik Hooker who has 1 more year left on his deal. Ron Kearse has, I believe, 1 more year left on his deal. So, and you have Marquise Bell who's cheap, and you saw some good stuff from him. But obviously, Donovan Wilson was a beast and a dog. You want to retain him. You got that defense looking really nice, and he was an enforcer, 6 sacks, a few interceptions, almost 100 tackles. I mean, he was all over the place, and he really proved his worth. But there's going to be a market for him, and I don't know if the Cowboys are going to go after that market. Like if Donovan Wilson gets a really high market, Cowboys are not going to get in the bidding war. That's not what they do. And obviously we've seen Jalen Ramsey got traded to the Miami Dolphins for a 3rd-round pick and Hunter Long. So basically for nothing. A lot of people are like, damn, why Cowboys can't do that? Well, I'll tell you why here in a minute. And then there's Bobby Wagner again. A little more of that. $30 million cleared open with the restructures of Dak Prescott, Zach Martin. We got more restructures probably coming, right? Odell Beckham is very much on the team's radar this offseason. Cowboys would prefer to pick up a veteran in free agency than trade for one of the several attractive names in the market. But what does OBJ want, and are the Cowboys willing to meet the price? That's the biggest thing, right? Cowboys executive would not comment if the team would attend OBJ's workout. I heard they weren't. However, source said the team is comfortable signing Beckham if the money and health is right. Health looks okay. It's really about the money, for real, if we want to really talk about it. And then let's jump over here. Like I said, I'm kind of go over the place, but you can always rewind this. I'm just getting all this out before I speak my piece. Now, this is reason why I put this when I said I will say there's a very small shift from 2020 on with the names that actually speak. They signed Everson Griffin from 2020. Remember, a lot of people wanted him. I wanted him. We were all jumping up and down when we got him, right? They signed Alden Smith. He was out of football, but hey, he was a name, and he came in, got 6.5 sacks. They signed Everson Griffin from 2020. They signed Gerald McCoy, right? He blew his leg out, but we were excited about the Gerald McCoy, right? They signed Dontari Poe. In the initial scheme of it, a lot of people were excited. We can't say you weren't. So when people say, and understand how I'm saying this, I'm not defending the Joneses or anything, but I also have to look at it from face value. So since Mike McCarthy has got there, I feel like there's a small shift into where they will try to go out and do things. If I look at 2020, I look at Gerald McCoy. He was a name, and he was still in good shape. I mean, they signed a little thing because they heard some noise about the leg, so they were smart and doing the injury contract as well because we saw what happened. We were excited when Dontari Poe got signed. We finally got a big man in the middle. Gerald McCoy was still legit. Clinton Dix wasn't the guy he used to be, but he had played with Mike McCarthy, still had some tread on his tires. A lot of people were feeling good about that. And then 2021, Keanu Neal, Terrell Basham, J-Ron Kearse. Those weren't big names. Keanu Neal was a decent name. Basham was pretty good. J-Ron Kearse, they were looking at him probably as a journeyman. And then last year, Dante Fowler and James Washington. So what am I saying? When I look at 2018, there wasn't any names to speak of. 2019, Randall Cobb, maybe. But I feel like there was a shift since Mike McCarthy has gotten here. I feel like the shift has been that they are trying more while Mike McCarthy is here, in my opinion. So now Mike McCarthy has taken over, right? Mike McCarthy is the guy now. Kellen Moore is gone. Mike McCarthy has his guys, right? I want to pull up this one last thing from Todd Archer because I like Todd Archer. And then I get my opinion on it, and then we'll be done. So Todd Archer. He has a good little article. He always has good articles, actually. And I'm going to pull up one of his articles talking about the free agency. All right, here we go. So, here it is right here. All right, so It will happen. It will happen starting next week. There'll be a flurry of free agent activity, and Cowboys will be mostly signed. The call for Jerry Jones to sell the team will be made over and over again and again. The belief that Jones don't really want to win will be barked over and over again and again. When the Cowboys do make their first signing, saying keeping long snapper Jake McQuaid, it will be met with mockery, Super Bowl bound comment, and social media. That's why I love Archer, because he tells the real. That's why I love him, because he just tells the real. Cowboys have not made a financially significant outside signing in free agency since signing Brandon Carr to a 5-year, $50 million deal in 2012. That's when Stephen Jones really had his hands all in it, and you see where it's happened. They attempted to make one a few years ago in Sammy Watkins, but he joined the Kansas City Chiefs instead of a deal that averaged $16 million a year. While they want to avoid mega contracts in free agency, they stated their goal every year is to retain their own with long mega contracts before the player can hit free agency, except that has not happened lately. Not since training camp of 2019. Ezekiel Elliott signed a big deal. You see it right there. Jalen Smith, big deal. Leo Collins, big deal. Smith was released. Collins was cut. Elliott might have played his last day. And as I scroll through right here, you can read this. I want you to kind of look at this right here. You can read through this. Now, this is where I want to get to. Executive Vice President Stephen Jones told ESPN last week at the NFL Scouting Combine that agents seem more reluctant to try to get long-term deals done nowadays compared to a not-so-distant past. It seems like their preference is to try to get to free agency rather than to get it done. Now, I don't know if they're right, but I don't know who's more right than the other. Us trying to do it and get ahead of time, or them. Back in the day, we get them done, and people wanted to do them. I'm not so sure it hasn't worked out for the players better than it has for us. When you look at some of the extensions, what they had, what did that they didn't play out their contract. And I'll let you read through here. And look at the most Pro Bowlers since 2014, right? And you can read through this. This is Stephen Jones talking what he talks. So basically, I showed this to say this. This is my opinion on it. I'm going to get up off here because there's not really much to say. First of all, it's crazy. You don't really have to be a Cowboy insider, right? Dallas don't do nothing. So I don't know. You a Cowboy insider. Dallas don't do nothing for you really to be an insider. The only thing you really want to get inside scoops on Dallas is the draft. Because everything else is pretty cut and dry. So you ain't getting no scoops on no insider news on Dallas. You're not. But I will say this. I made this tweet a while back, probably about a few weeks ago, and I said, Dallas Cowboys, the NFL, GMs, average lifespan is 2.5 years. Average lifespan of an NFL GM is 2.5 years. It's the shortest out of all the major sports right now, bar none. Why? A lot of pressure. Teams are flipping their rosters. Everybody's talking about the Rams having to reset the roster. Now Philly having to reset the roster, right? And people like, well, you had to flip your roster in a couple of years. Well, that's because these GMs got a short notice. You got a few years to get it done, or you could have your job. And that's why I said, that's why it's different in Dallas, because there is no pressure on Steven. There is no pressure on Jerry. There's no pressure on them. They can take their time. They can do it how they want. Because, once again, as Jerry says, I'm not firing myself, right? I run this, and nobody's firing me. So there ain't no pressure for them to jump up and say, let's go out and get this player right now. Let's go ahead and do this right now. Why do they have to do it? Nobody's telling them. Nobody's over them going to fire them. They're still getting money they're not losing money at the ticket sales. They're not losing money on the jersey sales. They're not losing money, period. They're the most richest sports organization in the world, I believe, right now. So where is the sense of urgency? There is none. There's a sense of urgency with the Rams or the Eagles or these other teams because they have to get it done. That general manager got hired. He has to get that job done in a few years because if he doesn't, he's getting fired. So he has to make those moves. He has to get down and dirty. He's got to throw his hands in them trades. He's got to flip people. He's got to make probably some astronomical moves because if he doesn't and stands pat, he's going to get fired. He don't got that luxury like the Joneses. Joneses ain't got to sit back there and say, hey, well, we failed or we didn't get there. We got to be better. So let's try it again. They're going to stay it this way, and it's not changing because there's nobody there to push them to change it any other way. So I don't know why people get mad at the Joneses in free agency, and it's crazy that they have us so trained that if I post anything in free agency, first thing a Cowboys fan says, they ain't doing nothing. That's crazy and sad in a way that we all know that they're never doing anything. Now, I said that this might be a surprise. I'm not going to say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid or going for the fool's gold, but I will say there has been a small shift with those names I just mentioned from 2020 since Mike McCarthy has gotten there. They did get T.Y. Hilton mid-season. T.Y. Hilton's not a bum. He did help. They did get Jonathan Hankins mid-season. He's not a bum. He definitely did help, and you want to re-sign him, right? And they flirted with OBJ in the mid-season. And I believe if he was healthy, I think it would have worked, and I think they actually may have signed him. And I feel like there is still legit interest in OBJ, and I feel like there is legit interest with Bobby Wagner. But once again, the numbers got to match up. They're going to sign their own before they sign anybody else, right? So my thing is sign Jonathan Hankins, re-sign Jonathan Hankins, re-sign Dante Fowler. Those guys will both come back cheap. They ain't going to cost you a lot of money. You put a tender on Terrence Steele, you're going to have to pay him. You got to bring him back, okay? Connor McGovern is gone. He went to Buffalo. Donovan Wilson, I don't know what's going to happen with him. I would like to see him back, but at what number? They're not going to get in a bidding war, and if he finds a big deal somewhere else, they're going to let him walk. LVE, I think they want LVE, but if he finds a good number, they're not going to get in a bidding war. You get what I'm saying? So my thoughts is this. It's the same thing in a way that the Cowboys are not going to rush. They're not going to rush. They're not getting in bidding wars. They're not going to do those type of things. So as Cowboys fans, you just got to stop beating yourself up and getting frustrated with this every single year because as a Cowboys fan, you should know this is the way it goes. But there may be a surprise this year. I say it may be a surprise because Mike McCarthy is running the ship now totally. And I feel like Mike McCarthy has bucked up against the Joneses. He's said things in the media the last year and a half. He's been taking little shots at Kellen. He was taking little shots at Kellen. He took little shots at the Joneses, to me, in my opinion, about how crazy it was. He's never seen anything like this. Woo-to-woo-to-woo. So I used to think that he was more the puppet, but I moved away from that because I feel like he has more control than a lot of the other coaches have in a long time, for the simple fact that when you have a Super Bowl under your belt and you've been to a championship and you won a lot of games, Jerry's going to listen to you a little bit more. You get what I'm saying? He just is because, as he says, you got skins on the wall. So Mike McCarthy says, I want my own guys. So he says, okay, that's a move right now. For real. We were talking about you wasn't letting go Kellen Moore, right? Kellen Moore's gone. Now, understand where I'm coming from when I say this. We said, man, Kellen Moore got to go. Kellen Moore got to go. Kellen Moore's gone. Remember when Jalen Smith, we were saying, man, Jalen Smith got to go. Jalen Smith got to go. He's gone. Remember we were talking about Dante Poe, man, it's a waste of Everson Griffith. It's a waste. Y'all signed these guys, they ain't did nothing. They got cut. Dallas went after guys in midseason this past season. So all I'm saying is there's a small inkling of something may happen. Do I believe it? Not really, but it could happen for the simple fact that I saw small things happening under Mike McCarthy. That's where I'm leading. I seen small things under Mike McCarthy. So when I see that OBJ out there, this is what would be great for me. This would be a win in free agency for me for what the Cowboys do. If they were to scoop Odell Beckham Jr. and somehow scoop Bobby Wagner, I'm cool with those two guys. Y'all don't got to get nobody else. And you resign those guys that I told you, I had mentioned. That's a win to me in free agency because Cowboys ain't going to me, and not my opinion, DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, we love him. I'd love to have DeAndre Hopkins in the fold. But are the Cowboys really going to trade picks as much as they love those picks? I just don't see that. I don't see them, even though Jalen Ramsey went for a third and a player, I don't see Dallas really going high and offering DeAndre Hopkins that and paying him. You get what I'm saying? I just don't think it. I think that OBJ still could be a real reality because I feel like OBJ does fit. You get what I mean? I feel like he fits the system. And when I got my guy Dylan Wilson, he made the same thing. I'm going to pull that up right quick. And he was saying this, and I agree with him about OBJ, where he said, I still think OBJ is the perfect scheme fit for this offense. I really do. You don't have to give up any picks to get him, which they don't want to do. And signing him allows you to go BPA in the draft. I agree with Dylan Wilson. Everything he said right there. You feel me? I agree with what he says. And I think OBJ is going to want money because this might be his last deal. So I don't blame him. You can't blame a player for trying to get – a player is not going to go low. A player is always going to go high. So if you see a high number, that doesn't mean that's the number that he's going to get, but that might be the number that he may want, but that don't mean the number that's you going to get. Remember, Anthony Barr wanted a very high number. We were like, they're out on Anthony Barr, and the next thing you know, a week and a half later, he's signed for a lot less. You get what I'm saying? So it really looks at the market and what teams want to pay. And what does a player really want to do? Does Odell Beckham Jr., does Bobby Wagner want to come into a situation with Dallas? Now, if you look at the situation in Dallas, I think it's a great situation if you're coming from Odell Beckham Jr. and Bobby Wagner standpoint. I know we're talking about the money, but if you're looking at Bobby Wagner, you come into a top defense. You had a career-high 6 sacks. You played 99% of snaps. You had a top year at 32. You could come in and be a starting middle linebacker. You got good talent around you. That defense is very, very good. You got young linebackers, Micah, Devin Harper, Jabril Cox, Damone Clark. You could be the leader of this. And your team is still pretty much together. You didn't lose a lot of players because they didn't oversign people. You see, the Eagles are losing their defense as much as we get frustrated with Stephen Jones and how they cheat. How they do it in this aspect is smart because in them couple years, them teams are flipping them rosters and them players that were dogs are gone. And at least in Dallas, they're going to be there for a while because how they manipulate the cap. So I agree with it in that aspect. I hate how they don't get a couple guys, but this could be a year. Now, y'all can say you're drinking the Kool-Aid, but I'm really not. But this could be a year you could really do it. So when I said, is this the same old thing or is something big going to happen? I don't know if it's the same old thing, but I'm not getting mad if it doesn't happen. I'm not going to trip if it does. I'll be like, hey, they finally making moves because at the end of the day, as I kind of ended in this is I don't expect anything from the Cowboys, but it can happen. So I can't rule anything out. Especially with these two signings. If you get OBJ and Bobby Wagner and you re-sign those guys, I feel like you prosper and you have a good draft. I feel like you're okay. So is it the same old thing? I'm going to say 50-50 right now with me because, as I said before, I've seen a small shift since 2020, since Mike McCarthy has gotten here, where they're doing a little bit more things than they did with Garrett. a little bit more things than they did with a Wade Phillips, a little bit more things than they did with these other guys, because Wade Phillips never went to a Super Bowl and won. Jason Garrett never went to a Super Bowl and won. The last guys that went to a Super Bowl and won was Bill Parcells, and even though Jerry was meddlesome, he did let Parcells do his thing. He did back off to a point and say, well, Parcells has done this, so I ain't going to be super meddling. And I think this is what they're trying to give Mike McCarthy a little bit of leeway. And so with that leeway, maybe they step up and make those other signings in free agency. I don't think they're going to go out and do anything else, but these two guys I am keeping my eyes on. If it doesn't happen, I ain't going to be mad because I ain't assuming it will. But this time, Cowboys fans, just keep your eye open. Maybe a little different this time. I'm going to wager on that one. So, tell me what you think about the video. Check us out. We're going hard all week. Giant going live Wednesday, my first official Giant. Get in there. Have a good time with it. We'll talk more. Big Game James, you know how we do. The final word draft, best of enemies, Giant, play-by-play, all going down this week. Make sure you